Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
All right, it's 3:03 on the dot, and Newhouse afternoon has begun inside our SMC studios. So glad you could join us again for our Tuesday edition. Joseph Duffy joined alongside Hunter Caparelli. Hunter, how's it going?
It's going well, Joe. A few more wins this week compared to last week. We had 0-4 between men's basketball, women's basketball, men's lax, women's lax. So a few more wins this week for Syracuse fans. I know they're probably thrilled about it, and we're thrilled ourselves to be able to talk about some wins.
It was a tough go of it for Syracuse athletics last week.
It was tough.
Men's lacrosse already, getting rocked around a little bit. Back in the win column this week. We'll talk about Syracuse men's and women's basketball, also along with women's lacrosse, and then also highlight the WBC coming up. The World Baseball Classic. Can't wait for that.
Excited about that.
It should be a really exciting week of baseball returning to the international stage in the game. A lot of great more MLB players participating this go of it in the last 4 years. So we'll start with Syracuse men's basketball. As of late, losing 88-83 against Wake Forest. We talked about Steve Forbes, the head coach, getting one more year to work with the Demon Deacons. It was a really solid performance from his team to win the second half especially. Same goal of it really for Syracuse, though. A hot start leading 46-42 at half. The three ball was unconscious. It still was not enough after Donnie Freeman's 28 points.
Yeah, Joe, it's been the same story. This time around, Syracuse actually shot the three ball well, which hasn't been what it's been all year. They've struggled at the three, so at least they had the three to fall. Nate Kings hit 5 of his own. So the offense at least was working well for the team. It's just been defense that's been really lacking all year long, and it showed in this game. We thought Juke Harris was going to go off, their star guard for Wake Forest, who's averaged 22 a game. He actually didn't have too big of a game. He only had 12 points, but Miles Colvin, a season-high 32 points. It's going to be tough to win games in the ACC if you're allowing opponents' guards to score over 30 points. He scores 32 on 9 of 12 shooting, and it was just a defensive lapse here in against Wake Forest. And the Orange have 2 games left in the regular season. They play tonight against Louisville. Louisville's talented, so we'll be able to see if they bounce back. But we've mentioned it on our shows before, they really are playing with a nothing-to-lose mentality, and hopefully they'll be able to show it tonight.
Well, let's dive into that Louisville game that's happening tonight. Tip-off at 9 p.m. in the KFC Yum Center. Pat Kelsey, one of the best coaches in college basketball, has coached a really good Cardinals team again. The #1 offense in the ACC this season.
#1 offense, freshman superstar Mikal Brown. If you want to watch him, he's averaged 26 over the past 6 games. That's including an outlier in their last game where he only had 5 points. So you take out that outlier 5 points, he's probably even closer to 30 points over the last 6 games. So it'll be a similar situation compared to Wake Forest. You had Juke Harris, who was coming in as one of the top guards in the ACC. This time around, Mikal Brown, alongside some other really good guards with Louisville, Ryan Conwell, Isaac McKinley from Virginia. So Louisville, a very talented guard-oriented team. They are currently unranked after being ranked for most of the season. They had a couple losses over the past few weeks, but still a very good team. Like you mentioned, the #1 offense in the ACC. So if Syracuse plays how they did defensively against Wake Forest, I think it could be a long night for the Orange.
Well, this is a team in Louisville that averages 86 a game. As I said, they're the #1 team in the ACC, 18th in NCAA. They're going to come into this game a little hot. I have to see that. And, they're going to be fiery, I'd have to guess, because that UNC game, they were almost there and fighting back in the second half to win that game against the Tar Heels. And then Clemson, losing to them, of course, was not something they want to do. But, going against the Syracuse team that's had a rough go of it, 14th in the conference, a team that is, just barely making the cut for the ACC tournament.
They'll be there.
Yeah, they're
just
going to
barely.
be there. They will be there,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But this is going to be a team, I think, that's going to come out hot, come in swinging in front of a really good crowd in the Cardinals Nation and KFC Yum Center. I don't know what Syracuse is going to do tonight, but I hope they can play hard as they have these last few games because they've shown some fight.
I really hope that they just come out looking with something to prove. Obviously this season hasn't gone the way they wanted. Obviously there's a lot of questions about Coach Autry's future, but just come out playing with house money. You have nothing left to lose. 2 games left before ACC play starts next week. I'm really looking at that Donnie Freeman versus Javon Hadley matchup. That 4 versus the 4. Hadley's a 6'7" guard. 6'7". Taller guard, but stretch 4. So I'd be curious to see if Freeman takes advantage of that matchup at the 4 spot. He scored 28 in the last game against Wake Forest. So I'm interested to see about that matchup. I think Freeman really has to exploit that matchup down low, especially against a Louisville team who has a lot of talented guards.
As you were saying, this is not the only last game for Q's coming up. They will face Pitt on Saturday. Then that'll be the end of the regular season. As it stands right now, they are slated to face against the Stanford Cardinal, who are the 11th seed in the ACC. A lot can happen in the end of the week to change those seedings for the bracket in the ACC. But looking ahead for the ACC tournament, at the moment, how do you think Syracuse can fare? We've said it before in the last 3 weeks. It's just about, one game at a time. Yeah. But as it stands right here, going against Stanford is not exactly the biggest challenge they can look for in the first round.
Won't be easy. Stanford is a solid ACC team this year. They've been up and down. I know Syracuse defeated Stanford a few weeks ago, but Stanford's been up and down. I know as a UNC undergrad, I watched Stanford beat UNC in January. It's a strong team. They have a couple strong guards, so it won't be easy right off the bat. Obviously, they won't have any buys going into the tournament, so it'll be win or go home from that Tuesday on. If they win that Tuesday, then they'll play one of the 7, 8, 9, or 10s, or 6, 7, 8, 9 teams in the second round. So from that point on, they'll be playing teams that are a little more rested, and it'll really be a win or go home mentality. But we mentioned before in the show, we've seen teams go on runs previously in the ACC tournament. Most recently, NC State as a 10 seed, they ended up winning the ACC tournament a few years ago, and they got an automatic bid to make the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you never know. There could always be miracles.
Syracuse doing enough just to hang around there to make the cut for the ACC. Stanford is winners of 2 straight, getting hot at the right time possibly, but that'd be an interesting first round matchup if it holds in the standings so far. Let's move on to Syracuse women's basketball, who's been on an interesting go of it as of late too. The last 2 games, losing to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We projected Hannah Hidalgo to have a really good game, and that she did. 27 points and also 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 steals.
That's ridiculous.
One of the best players in women's college basketball for a reason. She was active to start that first quarter immediately. And then you see this team destroy BC after losing to, the Fighting Irish in a game that they arguably could have won. They were right there too. But, taking care of business against BC this past senior night on Sunday, that's the way you want to rebound.
Totally. BC 5-26, so expected win there back at home on senior day. So I know the girls were super excited about that win, but you just got to hope they can take the momentum and take it into ACC play. We've talked about the narrative around this women's team. It's been the fact that they could take care of business against lower level opponents, but haven't really been able to get to that next step of beating those top level teams in the ACC. They currently only have 1 quad 1 win still going into ACC play. So you hope that if they could take care of an advantage after that first round bye in the ACC tournament, they'll have another opportunity to play Louisville, who they lost to by 20 points a few weeks ago at home. Louisville will be the number 2 seed in the ACC tournament. So they'll have opportunities to potentially get a second or third quad 1 win going into tournament play. Right now in March Madness bracketology, they're currently slated to be on the 9 seed line. I'm not too optimistic for their chances of staying in the tourney long if they do stay on that line. Obviously, just making the tournament for Coach Jack is already a success in itself. But looking forward, if they're on that 9 line, obviously beating the 8 seed, whoever they play, would be great. But playing the 1 seed in that second round game before the second weekend will be tough. I actually found this stat before we came on the show today. 8 and 9 seeds in women's basketball in the NCAA tournament are less than 4% 50% chance of winning those games, and they're 4-104 since March Madness has started in women's. So not a great probability of beating a number 1 seed if they stay on the 8-9 line. So I would love to potentially see them maybe collect 1 or 2 more quad 1 wins and go on a little bit of a run in the ACC tournament, so they can potentially maybe get on that 7-6 line.
Joseph Duffy and Hunter Caparelli on Newhouse Afternoon. Like you were saying, and like we've been saying the past few weeks, this team is very hard to project.
Yeah.
But in general, as it stands, this is a successful season for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Based off of last year.
Right.
In the leaving of Delia Schaffer. Looking at the standings of the ACC this year, it goes Duke, Louisville, UNC, NC State, Notre Dame, and Virginia Tech. Syracuse has lost to all of those teams in front of them.
Yeah.
So how do you project this team to go in the ACC tournament? I don't know. It could really be a toss-up. They could lose. They could beat any team. We've seen how well they could play at their best. We've seen what they look like at their worst, like against Virginia Tech in the Dome a few weeks ago, really a month ago at this point, losing to Megan Duffy's ball club, losing by 20 at your home crowd.
Yeah.
You know, that's the worst this team was. They've shown they can win and beat the really good teams near them, like Clemson, who also has beaten Duke. So this team is going to be, you know, really a good look to see how they can play in the ACC tournament, because they can win or lose to anybody.
Right, we've spoke about it. We think their biggest weakness is the fact that they had spells of not being able to score. In that loss against NC State recently, the NC State went on an 18-0 run into the second quarter. So that was a stretch of Syracuse just not being able to score. That same kind of spell of not being able to score happened in the Louisville game. So they just had spells of 5-6 minutes of just not being able to score. If you have spells like that in conference play against higher level opponents, it's just going to be really tough to win. That could happen against a 5-26 Boston College, but if that happens against a Louisville, an NC State, a UNC, it's just really going to be tough to fight your way back when you're fighting down from 15, 20-plus point deficits. But I'm really excited to see what happens. Play starts for Syracuse on Thursday. They'll face the winner of Cal and Wake Forest, and from there, if they win that game, they'll have a big rematch revenge against number 2 Louisville.
And how interesting that matchup will be between Wake and Cal if it holds up again, based off how this looks in the bracket, because you remember how Wake Forest fared against Syracuse. Syracuse dominated that game, but against Cal, I was on the call for that game. A triple overtime thriller
nuts
at the JMA Wireless Dome. A really good team that Sharma Smith has compiled. A lot of young guards that she's hyped with in the future, with guys like Lulu Twydale and so many very valuable pieces on that team. That's a really good, sneaky team that I don't know if they could possibly contend in the ACC tournament. We'll have to see, but watch out for that California team, especially if you're a Syracuse squad.
100%.
That'll do it to start off our first block here at Newhouse Afternoon. When we come back, we're going to talk about men's and women's lacrosse with a special guest analyst in Evan Harrington. We'll be right back on Newhouse Afternoon.
We're still streaming live on Twitch and YouTube. Sorry, I put you down a little bit, but I got you.
How can you hear him?
I can't hear him. Do you hear him? Well,
I think you're muted.
am I?
Oh, no.
I am muted.
No, you're good.
So I'm gonna text you a number, FaceTime that number. I'm now in the studio.
Okay.
I'm out by there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Evan, do you want to have your mic tested? You're going to be in the middle of us. Yeah, if you could.
If you're watching live on Twitch, feel free to hit the chat. Ask us any questions. We got questions about Iowa basketball last week, so we could take any sort of questions imaginable. Oh, yeah.
What an interesting time it is in sports. World Baseball Classic.
One of the best months for sports fans. I think arguably there's an argument to be made that March is the best month for sports. You have the college basketball tournaments, men and women. This year around, we have WBC getting into it. You have NBA playoffs coming up at the end of March. It's a whole culmination of many sports coming together.
Can you talk real quick? Does he sound fine?
Mic check, 1 2. Mic check.
He's texting you a number. He's not even testing or going yet. Yeah, March, man. It should be a really fun March Madness for both men's and women's basketball.
It's gonna be
It's going to be insane. We talked about this last week about predictions. I feel like an idiot now about
You said you sound good.
my I feel like an idiot now with my tournament prediction. I said I had St. John's possibly making a good run, but I don't know after this past week.
They had a big bounce-back win against Villanova. They beat Villanova by 30 points at home.
Yep.
Villanova is going to be in the tourney, so that was a big bounce-back win after they got smoked by UConn. That was tough. They're still projected to be on the 5-seed line somehow. They're actually ahead of UNC currently. Carolina's projected on the 6th line, so I'm a little surprised by that. But hey, any team could always go on a run, and leave it to Rick Pitino to find a way.
Arguably, go ahead.
I feel like I got a Smart Water ad going on here. It's like perfectly in fact.
I always have iced teas, Snapple.
Welcome to Newhouse Afternoon, presented by Smart Water.
Hey, maybe that's a sign for potential sponsorship.
Maybe. Smart Water, you know where to find us. $3.18.20. Evan, we're going to try to go to this until probably 3:30ish.
That's perfectly fine.
Because we already started behind.
First time guest.
Yeah.
You can ask
I'm
you to
gonna have
introduce
you, Evan.
yourself and
Yeah, I'll probably
your
go with, like,
background.
25, 30-second spiel.
Yep.
Hey, bro. I'm Kyle. Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Kyle? This is Hunter.
It's Kyle Marchick, I think.
Yeah.
I will shut up otherwise, but
You're
just
good.
tell you when you got like 30 seconds and I count you in from 10.
Fantastic.
Right now you've got... Dude, I'm never going to count it the first time. There's 30. Need to do math? Basically a little over a minute. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Big week for lacrosse.
Yeah, it's a big week.
Johns Hopkins on Saturday for the men.
Yeah, I was almost thinking about going down to that game, but I'll be on the call for the Lemoyne Manhattan game.
So it's technically considered a blue blood matchup against Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
It's interesting. As a awesome.
How many seconds? And it's 3:20 here in the SMC studios at the Newhouse School. Glad to have you back on Newhouse Afternoon. Joseph Duffy and Hunter Caparelli on this Tuesday show, and we're glad to talk about men's and women's lacrosse with a different special guest analyst this go-around. Evan Harrington, welcome into the SMC studios.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited. First-time guest here and ready to talk some men's and women's lacrosse.
We always love to bring in different perspectives. Always love it.
Yeah, it never hurts. And if you want to go into your background real quick, and what do you do here at Newhouse?
Yeah, so just obviously like you guys, a BDJ grad student, and myself, I've been able to be on a lot of the ACC extra calls with women's hockey for the Syracuse women's hockey team this year, working at various sports with football, basketball. Got to work on the broadcast team for one of the men's lacrosse games against St. Joe's earlier in the season. Yeah, just kind of doing a variety of things here just alongside you guys as well, just kind of getting my feet, in different puddles and, testing all the waters and really just kind of taking in that Syracuse experience with all the great sports teams we got on campus.
Love it.
Evan, since we saw this Syracuse men's lacrosse team beat Maryland, it's been a roller coaster of a season since this last episode. We've seen this team handled against Princeton 11-7, and then snapping that losing skid against the Penn Quakers in overtime, a game that almost looked like it was almost going in the wrong direction as well. Since this last broadcast on Tuesday, what are your thoughts firstly on that Princeton game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously dropping to Princeton, that's the ugliest loss of the season so far for the men's lacrosse team, and kind of going back to the point you made, they started 3-0 from the Dome, defeating Maryland in the way they did. The 4-goal performance from Joey Spallina really captivated that 3-game homestand. And then you go on the road for 6 straight. They're halfway through that slate here so far. But you drop the game 11-7 against Princeton, and it's the way that I think they lost the game against Princeton. They were down 6-0 at one point, and they, battled back a little late, but it was 11-6 at one point late in the fourth, and just overall, it just really seemed that Princeton got the best of them in a multitude of ways. When you look at that game,
I know they were outscored 6-0 in the first quarter. I know in the sport of lacrosse, it's going to be tough, no matter who your opponent is, to come back from a 6-0 deficit after the first quarter.
Yeah, and especially in the first half, Princeton outshot Syracuse 29-18. And also when you take a look at the overall aspect of the game, they were getting dominated in the face-off circle 12-10. And that might not seem like a big difference. 12-10, it is very close. But in the game of lacrosse, you have to dominate in the face-off circle. You got to get that possession. You got to start with the ball. And they did not do that. And also, Princeton had 32 ground balls comparative to Syracuse's 22.
Saw that.
So those are extra possessions. Those are extra chances to get offensive attacks for Princeton. And Syracuse did not come to play. And I think the biggest thing in that game is Joey Spallina held scoreless.
Yeah.
One of the few times that he's been held scoreless in his time here with Syracuse. And just a couple of games ago, he had 4 goals against Maryland.
Right.
And then now you have that performance against Princeton. That's just not the type of performance you can have from arguably the best player in the country. I still think a lot of people at this point consider Joey Spallina the best player in the country. I still do. But over the last few games, he has not played like the best player in the country. And against a team like Princeton, outside, in the cold. And again, we go back to this Syracuse men's lacrosse team, and what's the biggest knock on them? Yeah, they're great. They're one of the best teams in the country. But when it comes to playing in the cold, they're not.
This is narrative that they haven't been able to.
I mean, the haters love that narrative. But, I mean, look, it's been a rough go of it going outside as of late. I mean, you see how they played, but, they bounced back against the Penn Quakers, who were up for 8-4 in the third, and then Syracuse rats off 5 unanswered goals. How big was, that bounce back effort, and how great has Finn Thompson been playing? Because in Joey Spallina's quieter go of it lately, he's really come to life.
Well, I think the thing with Finn Thompson and also like Michael Leo and Luke Roa, they're kind of that secondary scoring layer to what Joey Spallina brings to this Syracuse lacrosse team. And, Finn Thompson, 3 goals. He's Michael Leo, 2 goals. And even a player like Billy Dwan III, getting the game-tying goal, knotting it up at 8-8 late in that game. And, that's the type of performance you need from your guys when a player like Joey Spallina is not playing like Joey Spallina. You need those complementary pieces to come in and show out. And what does this win mean for Syracuse? I think it means a lot. Now, was it dominating? Did they win 17-9? No. It was a 9-8 gritty win in overtime. Yep. But to me, this showcased, hey, we're not going to drop 3. We're going to battle back after dropping 2. We're going to move to 4-2. But now the schedule gets a little bit lighter going forward. Obviously, Johns Hopkins up next, a number 11 ranked team in the country. Tough. But I think that with this win against a tough Penn team, you're giving yourself a chance to give some confidence to yourself playing outside and getting into the later parts of the midpoint of the season against a tough team in Hopkins.
You mentioned the ground ball deficit in the Princeton game that they lost 32-22. They actually won that ground ball deficit 23-18. Do you think that was specifically a big positive, going from losing to Princeton, losing that ground ball matchup, and then winning it by 5 in the Penn game?
Yeah, and I definitely think it had a part of it. Definitely. Kind of changing that narrative.
Especially the fact that Penn controlled the face-offs. Penn controlled winning 12 of 18 face-offs. The fact that the Orange were at least able to win that ground ball battle.
Yeah, when you're getting down and dirty, on the field, you got to just fight for that extra possession, right? And if you're not going to get in the face-off circle, you at least got to get down and pick up a ground ball. If you do knock the ball out of an attackman's stick or so forth. So just, I think Syracuse, once again, it was a gritty game, right? You mentioned they didn't win the face-off battle. They won the ground ball battle, but again, the thing at the end of the day was they came out, they scored late, and they won in overtime. Was it the prettiest win? No, but it was a win at the end of the day to move them to 4-2.
How do you think you get the Orange to build up consistently again? Because, we asked Rob last week if he was worried after, that loss against, Harvard, a game that was Harvard's first win over number 1 in program history. Joey Spallina having quieter performances, and we saw him being held scoreless against Princeton. How do you get this offense and this team to build back consistently? Because this is a good starting point in Penn. Yeah, and I think kind of going back to the point of that complementary scoring, I think that's got to stay consistent, right? Like, we got to see more 2 and 3 goal performances from Finn Thompson, from Michael Leo, from Luke Aroa, right?
Don't forget about Spallina.
But at the end of the day, you gotta have Joey Spallina be Joey Spallina, and he did that against Maryland, and where he had that 4-goal performance, really, putting himself back up on the map as the top player in college lacrosse. Like, I still think he always was, but I think he kind of cemented himself in that retrospect with that 4-goal performance. But 3 goals in his last 3 games. I mean, that's just not going to cut it. I mean, if you told me Michael Leo had 3 goals in his last 3 games, I'd be like, all right, maybe a little bit more out of him, but we need more out of 22 here, because once again, Joey Spallina, my opinion, the best player in the country, but you got to play like the best player in the country to get your team back to the best team in the country, because it was only a week where Syracuse had that number 1,
that number 1 ranking.
For team in the nation, and they need to get back to that, and that's really going to be on the backs of Joey Spallina.
It was a blink and it ended pretty much, it seemed like.
Yeah, this is my last one for me on this men's team. Do you think these are the type of games, Evan, that will better prepare them for tournament season? The fact that they have this 6-game road stretch, they're playing these tough Ivy League opponents. This next game up on Saturday against Johns Hopkins, considered a blue blood rivalry matchup. Are these the type of games that could better prepare them for NCAA tournament season?
Yeah, I think 100%, because you're going on the road in a hostile environment. And head coach Gary Gate mentioned this in the press conference actually after the Maryland game. There was over 10,000 fans. It was a record attendance-setting night for them, and he talked about that at the end of this 3-game homestand at the start of the season. They're going to leave the Orange faithful with the 10,000-plus crowd that they had, and they're going to go on the road for 6, right? And they're going to go into a lot of different hostile environments. Like Johns Hopkins, that's a hostile environment. Yep. We talked about Princeton, hostile environment. Harvard, hostile environment. And it doesn't get any easier. Then you got to go out west after this. You're going to Air Force in Denver. So, again, 2 great atmospheres, and they're going to be battle tested. And I do think that the games coming up could help them going forward. Yeah.
Joseph Duffy and Hunter Caparelli joined with guest analyst Evan Harrington. Let's transition to Syracuse women's lacrosse and Reggie Thorpe's team, which is finally in the win column after a gauntlet of a start of the schedule. We saw this team lose so many heartbreakers, including against the reigning NCAA champion North Carolina Tar Heels. As of late, getting that win against Loyola Marymount, but also creating back-to-back victories against Louisville, winning 13-10 this past Saturday. Molly Guzik has been a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, she's been phenomenal, having 4 goals in that effort, leading the team with 15 points and 12 goals herself. I mean, she is undoubtedly the best player on the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, and she just continues to find new ways to impress. Her shot angles are unbelievable. It just seems like no matter where she is on the field, she can somehow dodge her way to the cage and always create a scoring opportunity for herself. And she's been simply phenomenal and continues just to be electric for the Orange.
This latest win against Louisville, do you think it was defense that kind of spearheaded them toward that 13-10 victory? I saw they forced 19 turnovers, which was the most in a single game for the Orange since 2019 when they forced 20 against Binghamton. So 7 years since they forced that many turnovers. Do you think defense is the reason why they potentially won that game against Louisville and will hopefully help them win more games down the stretch?
Yeah, I think it was a cause of 2 different things. First, you mentioned the 19 caused turnovers. Once again, I mean, anytime you can cause that many turnovers in the game of lacrosse, you're just giving yourself an extra opportunity to get to the cage and score offensively. But I think it was complementary scoring for me. They had 9 different goal scorers. obviously Molly Gusick leading the way with 4, but 8 others following suit. And anytime you can get that much depth scoring
depth
with your team in that game, and 13 goals is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but when you take a look at 13 goals and having 9 different goal scorers, I think that's more impressive than scoring 18 or 19 goals and having 9 different goal scorers, right? Because at that point, you might have a couple players with like 3 or 4 goals, right? But it was Molly Gusick and a bunch of
Jolie Caramelli.
Yeah, Caramelli was great, and just following suit.
I mean, you have to think there's still potential with this team, even after that skid. It's hard to even call it a skid anyway because it was such a hard, start to the season with all these ranked teams they had
bring
to
that
play.
up. They played number 7 Maryland, number 1 North Carolina, and number 2 Stanford their first 3 games of the season. So they're 2-3, but they played 3 top 10 teams in their first 3 games, and I think they're starting to prove over these last 2 wins that they're a lot better than I think people think.
And we knew coming in to this season that they might start 1-2, they might start 0-3. And I think that a lot of fans were kind of comfortable with that because they knew how good this team was and how good they can be. But once again, the UNC game really kind of showed me where this team could be. It was close down until the final moments of that game. They lost 13-9. Same with the number 2 Stanford game. And I really thought they outplayed Maryland. When you look at the box score, they really, really played a good game against Maryland. They just couldn't capitalize Maryland. I'm trying to, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure they had 5 free position chances in like the first quarter or something. So anytime opposing team gets those chances, it's going to put them ahead of you than otherwise.
What's one vital improvement you think they still need to make as ACC play kind of intensifies as the season goes along?
I just think, continuing to get that depth scoring against Louisville.
Right.
You saw, once again, 9 different goal scorers, and Molly Gusick leading the way with 4. But I think anytime you can get Caroline Trinkus or Mackenzie Rich, Ashley Volpe, or
Mushnick.
Yeah, and all the rest of the girls on the team, finding their game and getting hot and getting that consistency going and that chemistry gelling. I think if that's scoring and also the defense, like the caused turnovers, I think you're not going to have 19 every game, but if you can find a way to get a dozen turnovers in a game fairly consistently and just things along that line, I think you're going to set yourself up for success.
Big game tonight against Cal.
Yeah, Syracuse plays the Cal Golden Bears at the Dome at 5 p.m. Go out to watch that one and support Reggie Thorpe's ball club. Evan Harrington, thank you so much for coming on to Newhouse Afternoon.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
We'll be right back, and when we come back to Newhouse Afternoon, we'll talk about the World Baseball Classic with Augie Walters, another special guest here on Newhouse Afternoon. Don't go anywhere.
Perfect. We're streaming live on Twitch and YouTube.
Nick Costa says, lacrosse talk. Syracuse is literally known for lacrosse, and they aren't even good at that. Oh, man. Nick Costa, not liking the lacrosse talk.
Haters gonna hate. Got a star-studded lineup today.
Really good lineup. Augie Walters buttoning it up and freshen up on the side. Fresh from a class. Yeah, you sound, you're good, man. You're all good.
You sounded good. Yeah.
You sounded great, dude. You're awesome. Did a really good job. You obviously sounded prepared. Great job.
Do you have the phone number again if people want to call in? I forget it.
Oh, my God. It passes by every now and then. Let me see real quick. I know what it is. It's not showing the usual graphic for it.
Hey. Damn. Now I'm the only one without a suit. Again, if you're watching live on Twitch and YouTube, feel free to hit the chat if you have any questions. We're talking some World Baseball Classic.
Oh, it should be a fun one.
Feel free to hit the chat.
Yeah, feel free to tune in on YouTube and Twitch. Hunter and I are patrolling both chats.
We are.
Here on Q Sports Talk on the Tuesday edition. Here at Talk, some World Baseball Classic action coming up next.
Especially after how those Winter Olympics panned out, I think every sports fan, every baseball fan, every sports fan should be as excited, if not more excited, for the World Baseball Classic.
Sure.
Absolutely. How could you not be?
Yeah. I'm fired up.
I don't think people realize how soon it starts. Like we're here.
Oh,
like
we're
it's
here.
time. Like
They're literally playing their exhibition right now.
And there's games tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Pool play games, and so we're getting
Because of the
ball
time,
rolling.
because of the time change, right? Because there's games in Japan, there's games played here, that like a lot of people I think don't even realize that the games are officially starting. I think Thursday night.
I think there's a game Wednesday night in
Yeah,
Tokyo,
Wednesday night.
and then I
The
think the
Tokyo Dome.
ball gets really rolling a little bit more Thursday, and then Fridays when the teams in America start playing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Augie, we're going to try to go to... Oh, my God. He said how many seconds?
90.
Oh.
51, 52.
Low key. We could just go...
We could.
end the show with this?
Yeah, we can end the show.
Because there's
with
no point in taking a break just to come back for...
Do you have ads you have to get in or no?
No. We can take breaks when we want.
Take breaks whenever.
We already started late.
run
I don't know if
the
you
show.
heard. We had difficulties. We can't hear what our producers are usually saying, so that's why we're on FaceTime. So we started like at 3:03, 3:04-ish. So we had to cut into...
We could go right through and then wrap up Syracuse men's women's basketball.
Because he can talk basketball too. So
All right, I'll just hang out.
minutes, yeah.
How about
yeah,
that?
just stay here to the end. We have a hard cutoff at 3:55:20.
We unfortunately will not be on the show next week. It is spring break here at Syracuse University, so we'll be off next week during the men's ACC tournament. I'll be boots on the ground there, so hopefully we'll be able to get some content, some coverage for the show, and we'll see how it turns out. Obviously, a lot of people are waiting for if and when Syracuse men lose in that tournament, and hopefully intriguing post-game press conference after with questions surrounding the head coaching job. So a lot of news, hopefully, once we return.
Quite the year we came into here as grad students on this campus. Wish it could have been a little bit more different, especially with the football team. They had a really good year this past season. Seeing how they played in the fall.
Stories. There's always stories, though.
There's always stories.
I wonder what the odds were going into this year for the football team not to make a bowl and the men not to make the tournament.
Yeah.
I know.
3, 2, 1, you are live.
Last leg of the show here inside the SMC studios at Newhouse. It is Newhouse Afternoon. Joseph Duffy with Hunter Caparelli and another special guest here on the Tuesday edition. Glad to be joined by Augie Walters. Augie, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for letting me hang out, guys.
We got a star-studded lineup today of
Super
guests.
Tuesday, huh?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and we're
all
talking
right.
about the World Baseball Classic. Briefly go into your background with the game of baseball and, just how much you love the sport and how excited you are for the World Baseball Classic.
Well, we were talking about it right before I hopped on. I mean, the Olympics with the hockey, I think that was kind of like people will rally behind their country. They'll get excited for what their country's able to do. And the World Baseball Classic does that for a much different stage because a lot of the Latin American countries really get an opportunity to showcase what they have to offer, and a lot of the Asian countries as well. And I think the World Baseball Classic, given that it's so global, is so interesting because so many different fan bases are tuned in. And it's exciting because you get to see, what this means for certain countries and the players that are from those certain countries. So I'm fired up, but look, again, this is not going to be a walk in the park for the United States, in my personal opinion. I think, they have a very talented roster, but there's a lot of talent that's going to, get in their way.
Really quick before we dive in, your background, you're from Arizona, and you also pitch collegiately.
Yeah, no, from Arizona, which they've had a lot of World Baseball Classic games at Chase Field in Arizona. I've never actually been to one. It's a bucket list item for me, for sure. But yeah, pitched collegiately at Holy Cross in Worcester, which was a great experience. College baseball's a ton of fun, but it's just the game of baseball itself. I'm a big Diamondbacks fan, so grew up watching a lot of those games. I know you guys are totally dialed into baseball season as well. So I think the three of us know how much we're going to be dialed in and how much we think everyone should be think that it all comes down to pitching, but with the World Baseball Classic and the pitching limits and the pitching rules, it's actually a little bit different than normal. And I think that I do think that the teams they need to be the most cautious of is definitely Japan, but I think the team that will give them the most trouble is the Dominican Republic, because the Dominican Republic's lineup is unbelievable. I mean,
insane.
There's no holes, and while there's no real holes in the USA's lineup, there's no holes at all in the Dominicans lineup as well, and they're going to be hungry. They're going to be they love this tournament. The DR loves this tournament, and they're going to come out ready to play.
Yeah, I was going down their batting order, starting projected lineup: Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Junior Caminero, Manny Machado, Julio Rodriguez. I mean, it's just all-star after all-star. And you could say the same thing about the United States lineup: Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, Cal Raleigh, PCA, Bobby Witt. But the fact that like the U.S. isn't the only team with all of all-stars, you could look at the DR lineup, and it's literally just got like potential MVPs, guys with one MVP, all-stars. It's really insane to see, and I think they definitely are the team. The USA is the team to beat, but as far as that next team that could potentially knock them off.
Augie, you look at this pool that the USA is in. They're also joined with Mexico, Italy, Great Britain, and Brazil. We were talking off camera about a team that you could, foresee them possibly making a run that's a little bit underrated, flowing under the radar in a way. Who is that team to you in this WBC that is not getting as much praise as the USA, the DR, and Japan?
Well, let's talk about the USA's pool. They are in Pool B, which is being played in Houston, and that Mexico team, I think that's a team that can give the USA some trouble. And the whole Tariq Skubal thing. It creates a situation, right, where he's pitching for 55 pitches for one game, but he is the best pitcher on Team USA staff. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Ahead of Paul Skeens.
Ahead of Paul Skeens. He is the best pitcher on Team USA staff. He's done this. He's been there, and he should be pitching in that Mexico game. My personal opinion is that they should have put him over Skeens in that Mexico game. They didn't. They went with Skeens. I'd be a little nervous. I trust Paul Skeens 100%, but the Mexico lineup is dangerous. Randy Arozarena creates problems. I mean, and I think the pitching that Mexico has, they have a good bullpen, and when it comes down to the pitch counts and being able to manage the pitch counts, I think that USA should have put their top dog in that game. And I think Monday night, it's on Fox Monday night, and I think that game should be circled.
You have to wonder how much the Tigers ownership is playing a part in this, because as it stands, Tariq Skubal is slated to go against Great Britain and not Mexico. That came out, earlier today from Bob Nightingale, that this team is not going to have Skubal, of course, pitch the whole tournament. A lot of his ownership is probably, moving the strings a little bit with that.
Maybe. I know he only has a year left on his
He won his big
contract.
arbitration hearing. That was a big storyline off season. Brought his Cy Youngs to the hearing, which is a really
trade rumors.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. But pitching one start, it kind of bugs a lot of fans in a way.
Yeah, and I get it. From the Tigers standpoint, I get it. You're throwing so much money into this player, and you don't want to see him pull an Edwin Diaz, right? Where Edwin Diaz for Puerto Rico a few years back celebrates and tears his Achilles and out for the entire year, right? And that is a nightmare scenario, which for an MLB team that just put $30 million into a pitcher. And look, I can understand it from their standpoint, but at the end of the day, he's just as likely to get hurt in a World Baseball Classic game as he is in a spring training game, in my personal opinion. Now, maybe the pitch count thing, they want to build him up for the season. I think they're being a little tentative, and the reason that I think they're being a little tentative is just because of the other pitchers on the staff for the United States that aren't restricted to these rules, and that he's getting restricted to these rules. That makes it stand out a little bit. But one thing I'd like to bring up as well is it was announced today that if the United States makes the final game,
interesting storyline.
Nolan McLean's going to be the starting pitcher.
Are you serious?
For the U.S.
Craziness.
Nolan McLean will start for the U.S. in the championship game if that comes up, and I think that's advantage opponent.
Is that just based off rotation
based off of the
I'm
rotation.
guessing, though, that they'd have Skeens in one of those elimination games leading up to that. But if not, he could be available out of the bullpen in that final, because Nolan McLean, firstly, already saying who you're going for a final that you're not even close to yet is a little bit crazy. But
yeah,
you know, Nolan McLean.
I think it was more projecting.
Yeah, projecting.
But well, you saw Japan last year throw Otani out of the pen.
Yeah.
So they're capable of putting Skeens in the pen. And I mean, you've seen in MLB with these Game 7s, sometimes they'll have the best pitcher who pitched in a Game 5 come out of the pen. I don't know how much the Pirates would love that, putting Skeens on short rest before the season's even started. Yep. But we're gonna have to see how it plays out. But if you want 2 games, I'm gonna give you 2 games that I think you need to watch in pool play. It's that Monday, USA versus Mexico, and then it's Wednesday. There's a huge game in Miami, and you got to circle it on your calendars. The Dominican Republic playing Venezuela that night is going to be. There's going to be fireworks at Lone Depot Park that night. I think that is going to be one of the most exciting games to watch in all of pool play.
We saw Mexico beat the U.S. 11-5 in the pool play last WBC. This is a capable team, and they should be feared like any other roster in this WBC for sure.
We were speaking about pitching. Will pitching be the potential downfall for this Team USA team? Obviously, they have the stars are immense. Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, like we mentioned. Will pitching be their potential downfall?
No, I don't think so. I think their potential downfall will come if they run into a pitcher that gets really hot. And I think with Luis Severino on the Dominican Republic, that can happen, right? Like
Yamamoto with Japan.
Yeah, 100%. Yamamoto with Japan. Even I mean, that's just someone that you can get into some trouble with, because he's proven in a Game 7 on World Series, he's proven he will lay whatever he needs to down on the line for his team. And I think it's the offense, falling into a bit of a slump and getting behind a really good pitching performance from an opponent. I think the pitching is going to be a strength for this U.S. team. Other than, I think, the McLean starting the final game, that's a question mark. That's a 100% question mark.
Let's talk about the lineup here. And Mark DeRosa, credit to him, he's done a really solid job in recruiting. One of the biggest gets he got was Aaron Judge to captain this team. They're actually playing their exhibition game right now against the San Francisco Giants. As it stands, that started at 3 o'clock. This lineup for that game today was Bobby Witt, Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, Kyle Schwarber, Alex Bregman, Cal Raleigh, Roman Anthony, Byron Buxton, and Bryce Terang, with Paul Skeens starting. When you look at this lineup that the U.S. has to offer, it's clearly the best that they've had in WBC history, I think.
Yeah, there's no holes in that lineup. There's no holes. I think that it's just going to be extremely difficult to pitch against, and I think it's because they have the mixture of right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters that they can split up like they've kind of done. You got Harper hitting second with Judge in the middle, the right-hander hitting third, and then you go back to Schwarber, the lefty, then Bregman, then Raleigh switch hitters. That goes that goes left, right, switch. And that's a matchup nightmare for a staff, right? Because you want to play matchups, and you can't, because this lineup is able to kind of break that apart. It goes down the whole way. Even Anthony lefty, Buxton righty, Terang lefty. So, and they got Ernie Clement coming off the bench, right-handed platoon. Goodness. I mean, look, you can play as many matchups offensively as you want if you're the United States, and I think that is definitely used to their advantage. And then you can bring in a Griffin Jackson or Mason Miller late in the game, and you definitely have the upper hand there. But a name I want to talk about that's going to mean a lot to this team is Logan Webb, and he's going to have to pitch in probably a very important quarterfinal game for this team. And I think that's a game that you're going to have to really look into, because Logan Webb, he's so talented, right? But he's a smaller, under the radar name, but he's going to have to he's going to have to step up in a quarterfinal game for this team to get to Skeens in the semifinal eventually.
The next time we're live on Newhouse Afternoon, it will be Tuesday, March 17th, the night that the WBC championship will be. The championship slated to be in Miami. Let's look 2 weeks down the line. Let's say the U.S. is in the final, whether it's against a Japan, a DR. Do we think that the fact that they're playing in Miami, that home field, could potentially make a difference?
if it's the DR, that's home field for them.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if it's the Dominican Republic, that is more of a home game for them than it is for the United States. If it's Japan, it's not. But you saw Japan knock off the U.S. in Miami last year. So I think the home field advantage is not going to play a role, and I think it's going to come down to more of the play on the field.
Really?
I mean, it's going to be a party down there in Miami, especially for that pool over there. DR and Puerto Rico and Venezuela and Colombia. Always a very fun one that goes on in the Marlins Park over there. The U.S. will play in Daikin Park, home of the Houston Astros, for their pool, as opposed to down there in Arizona as they played last pool. You know, when you project how this team's go of it could be in the WBC, it's clearly championship or bust, right? I mean, it has to be.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
They can't, just maximize the semifinal. You can't have any excuses with his pitching staff.
No. It's championship or bust. The real thing is going to come down to whether it means as much to the United States as it means to some of these other countries. And sometimes that plays a role, and sometimes the power of just chemistry and excitement plays a role. And so I think that that's going to be something you're going to have to look at as well.
Because I think on paper, for one game, you would want the USA roster over any other roster.
Yes.
But it's that point you brought up. How much does it mean to them?
Right.
If it means more to a DR, a Japan, than the U.S.
I mean, this is, put it in layman's terms, this is some teams this is the biggest thing that this is the biggest games they're going to be playing in all year long. For some of these players on Venezuela, this is the biggest game they're going to be playing in all year long. And, that means a lot to these guys.
Well, there's also probably a lot of players who sometimes don't, or may most likely don't even make the MLB playoffs most years.
Right.
And the fact that they're playing in the WBC once every 3 years, it could almost be like an MLB playoff atmosphere, I think, a lot of these guys.
Speaking more to Augie's point, you saw how much it meant to Japan, especially in that final last go of it. And Shohei Ohtani's pregame speech in the locker room telling them, stop idolizing these guys. Keep your mind on us. And look what they did. They dominated. It was a good pitching matchup, and the United States could not hang on, culminating with that strikeout of Shohei Ohtani on Mike Trout. One of the best moments in baseball history.
I was going to say, if you could draw up if you could draw that up again this year, baseball fans would have gotten everything they wanted. If you get Yamamoto in the ninth, facing off against Bryce Harper with the tying run on second base and 2 outs, can we just get that again? Is that easy to ask for?
The script writers will be at full work.
Yeah,
it would be awesome. Augie, thank you for joining us here for
thank you guys. This
WBC
was a lot of fun.
It was great. That'll do it for our show here on Newhouse Afternoon. Please keep track of Syracuse men's basketball and also Syracuse women's basketball coming up. Hunter, real quick, with this women's basketball team, the ACC outlook in this tournament, how do you see them foreseeing as they play the winner of Wake Forest in California as it stands in the bracket? Right
before we wrap things up here, I think I see Cal winning that game against Wake Forest. I could see the Orange beating Cal in a close one. From that point on, they'll have a very tough matchup against number 2 Louisville in that quarterfinal matchup on Friday. I won't make a prediction. I hope the Orange come out with fire and they can potentially gain another quad 1 opportunity before getting into NCAA tournament play.
All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. No show next week. It's spring break. Joseph Duffy, Hunter Caprelli, and Augie Walters signing off here on Newhouse Afternoon.